Hello, this is Todd Luck, and this is a review of Pellucidar at the Earth's Core. This is a 2017 graphic novel from Dark Horse Comics that reprints the 1970s adaptation of At the Earth's Core by DC Comics. So this trade paperback collects material that was in Korak 46, which was the first DC issue of Korak, and also Weird Worlds 1 through 7, which was their anthology that had their non-Tarzan Edgar Rice Burroughs strips. So DC Comics did loose adaptations of the John Carter of Mars and Beyond the Furthest Star novels, which at times veered off into their own direction. But they did straight adaptations of both Carson of Venus and At the Earth's Core, which were very close to the novels, and Carson of Venus was done by the great Mike Kaluta. And you can get that adaptation of the first Carson of Venus novel, Pirates of Venus, from American Mythology. They reprinted it in 2 issues, and you can get that on their store, on their website, or any place that sells comics. But what we're talking about today is this wonderful collection containing all of DC Comics, Pellucidar comics. And so this contains an adaptation of the first Pellucidar novel, At the Earth's Core, and a little bit of the second one. We'll talk about that at the end. But let's start with this absolutely gorgeous cover by the great Mark Schultz. I love the rendering. I love the composition, the colors. Everything is just absolutely gorgeous. Now, it does kind of give you the impression that the Earth's core is this underground, subterranean looking world, which it's not, but that is a very common trope when illustrating these novels, and it's just hard to argue with just how beautiful this is, with Diane the Beautiful over a vanquished Mahar with the Iron Mole coming out in the background there. It's really good. And so At the Earth's Core stars David Enos and Abner Perry, who ride this experimental vehicle called the Iron Mole into the inner Earth. Things go wrong and they end up at the Earth's core in a land called Pellucidar, which is this prehistoric world that lines the core of the Earth, and it's eternally lit by a noonday sun. So in true Burroughs fashion, they lose their clothes, have a bunch of adventures, run from danger to danger, and meet Diane the Beautiful, who is the princess of the novel. They're captured by the ape-like Sagoths, who take them to their masters, which are the Mahars, these intelligent dinosaurs that rule the Earth's core and enslave and eat humans. And of course, there's all kinds of cool monsters in here. You actually get to see a couple prehistoric creatures go toe-to-toe in an arena. It's just awesome stuff. So all of the artwork I've shown you up till now has been from Alan Weiss. And I was so surprised when I got these comics to find out he was the artist, because I've always liked his style. He's not a hot artist, but he is one that has a beautiful, unique, realistic art style that I do enjoy. He does a lot of little projects here and there that are usually really good. He illustrated a 2-part story in Avengers 215 and 216 written by Jim Shooter that helped define Molecule Man as a character. He did the interiors for Armageddon, The Alien Agenda, issue 3. It's a time travel miniseries with the 3rd issue being set in the Old West, and it features a bar fight with all of DC's Western heroes, which is pretty epic. And he also did War Dancer for Defiant Comics, which is this offbeat series involving Mayan space god and wrestlers and aliens, and it's written by Jim Shooter, and it's good stuff. Unfortunately, Weiss does not get to illustrate the entire story here, and so normally I kind of dread when this happens, you know, when you have to switch artists in the middle of a comic. It usually isn't particularly good, but there's exceptions to that, and this is definitely one of them, because they bring out no other than Mike Kaluta to do the very next chapter. And then the last 3 chapters are drawn by Dan Green. He's better known as an inker, but really knocks it out of the ballpark as an artist. And I just really love the fact that when I was reading this, I almost didn't realize there was a change in artist. I honestly thought it was just a change in inker until I looked at the credits. And that's a testament to the amount of talent they had on tap, and also their willingness to keep the character's own model no matter who was drawing them, and sometimes that can be very nice. And so it's written by the great Denny O'Neil, who's probably best known for his work on Batman, but he does a great adaptation of the At the Earth's Core novel. Very faithful, but like every adaptation, it's going to have some things that are left out or changed. That's just the nature of taking a story from one medium to another. For instance, the Mahars can actually mentally communicate with the Sagoths in the comic. This is a little bit different from the novels because in the initial novels, the Mahars could only mentally communicate with each other. They had to use nonverbal communication to talk to the Sagoths, basically dinosaur sign language. That change is a very common one because it just kind of streamlines the story to have them just be able to mentally communicate, especially if you're adapting it into a visual medium. One thing they omit in the adaptation is a scene where the Mahars are experimenting on humans. Basically, they're treating us like we would treat animals, dissecting us and stuff to try to figure out how we work. This is a minor scene in the novel, but it is actually major as far as how writers after Burroughs would deal with the Mahars. It's actually the basis of how the Mahars have been portrayed in the newer novels in the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe. And since this is a comic in the 1970s, sometimes the violence is going to be toned down just a little bit. So in that famous scene where the Mahar hypnotizes its victim to walk into the water where it consumes the human, we have all of the consumption happening underneath the water and we just see the red blood coming to the surface. In the novel, it's actually far more horrific. It actually describes that the Mahar rips off a human's arm and she doesn't even react. The hypnosis is that strong. So obviously it's understandable that they probably couldn't do that in a comic back in the 70s, but I don't think you're missing a whole lot there. And so yeah, overall this is an excellent adaptation of the first novel. Gives you a really good 101 about what the Earth's core is about. Now, a funny thing happened when they tried to adapt that second novel. They got canceled. They decided to dump all of the Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff in Weird Worlds and turn it into a sword and sorcery comic with their own character. And so this, what should have been the beginning of a long adaptation of the second novel, ends up having to adapt all of it in one 10-page chapter. And so this basically just tries to give you kind of the gist of what happened in the novel in a single chapter. So they do fight Hooja the Sly and defeat him, but in the novel, he was the villain for the entire novel. So obviously there was a lot more to it. And it does say at the end that David Enos and Diane the Beautiful do bring an era of peace and prosperity to Pellucidar. And at the end of the second novel, simply titled Pellucidar, it does talk about how David Enos overthrew the Mahars and established his own empire in Pellucidar. And so while I do wish they had gotten to adapt that second novel as well, I am very grateful for what they did with the first one, and I do highly recommend this trade paperback. It is good stuff, and if you would like to see a movie adaptation of At the Earth's Core, that does exist. There was a cool movie put out in the 1970s, very faithful to the novel, though of course it does take its own liberty with the source material and is limited by the special effects they could do at the time. And there's been a lot of Pellucidar comics in recent years. You've got Pellucidar comics from American Mythology, you've got comic strips online on EdgarRiceBurroughs.com telling new Pellucidar stories, and so there's some really cool stuff out there. At the Earth's Core remains one of Burroughs' most famous creations, and it's good to see that it's still alive and kicking. All right, guys, like and subscribe for more videos, and until next time, see ya.